7 spine-chilling encounters with sinister strangers hidden in the walls, terrifying truths exposed. The walls in Elmwood Heights were whispering secrets. A soft scratching echoed through Sarah's quaint little house, where late nights at the grocery store shaped her life, leaving her exhausted and chasing after her 2 children, Tyler and Mia. As darkness fell, shadows crept from the corners, flickering just beyond her line of sight. Each night grew thicker with anxiety until one incident shattered her fragile normalcy. On a particularly quiet evening, she found Tyler curled up in his room, trembling eyes fixated on a shadowed spot in the wall. Panic pulled at Sarah's gut. "Mom, the man in the walls, he's watching us," he murmured, his voice quaking like a leaf in a storm. She knelt beside him, her heart racing. "Tyler, it's okay. There's no one there." But deep inside, Sarah's own doubts festered, marring her attempts at reassurance. Each night brought more scratching, like nails against wood, shrilling louder as Sarah tried to drown it out with the hum of the television. Peeking through the cracks in her own sanity, she could see something dark waving at the edges of her view. The words, "He sees you," now etched into the plaster, made her skin crawl. Last week, she almost called the police but hesitated, fearing they'd laugh in her face. After all, Elmwood Heights was the ideal suburb, untouched by terror. Until now. "Good evening, Sarah," greeted Mr. Jenkins. His too friendly smile made her uneasy when he showed up unannounced, offering help with repairs. "You know your home needs a little work, right?" How did he know? A chill hit her spine, but she smiled back, forcing herself to accept his presence as a kindness. Yet, every glance at the way he examined her home fed an unsettling fear, like he was holding a secret she couldn't grasp. Weeks passed like shadows chasing the sun until the community itself turned an indifferent eye. She felt encaged not by walls, but by an invisible dread that crept into her day-to-day life. The police brushed her complaints aside, concerned about maintaining Elmwood's perfect facade. "Just a kid's imagination," they'd chuckle, tossing her worries into the wind. She was on her own, spiraling into darkness. One night while picking up Mia's toys, a phrase floated into her consciousness: "Every scar has a story." The thread of Mr. Jenkins started unraveling, linking to cold cases, lost kids, missing from her perfect neighborhood. Suddenly her heart raced. Could he be connected? The thought recoiled in her mind, sinking deeper with promise of horrors. But everything changed one evening when a shuddering noise pinched her attention, an innocuous sound that echoed from the attic, a place she had told herself was just for storage. She hesitated but remembered her children, left unprotected upstairs. Climbing the rickety ladder, heart beating against her ribs, she pushed open the door. What laid before her was a chilling revelation. Photos of her kids plastered like trophies on the walls, capturing fleeting moments of terror. Each snapshot screamed intimacy violation, and the darkness she struggled to outrun. As she stood there, panic gripped her throat. The line between neighborly trust and chilling betrayal blurred. She had opened a door to her greatest fears, and it was answering back. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." With every breath, shadows writhed closer, feeding her mounting dread. She spun around, clutching the door frame as a voice she thought buried, reminiscent of the silken whisper from the walls, seeped into her mind. It was a voice she had tried to push into the dark. Now it was creeping back, echoing through her heart. In that moment of revelation, she stood at the edge of a terrifying precipice, realizing she wasn't just battling fears in the walls. The real terror hid among friends, neighbors who wore faces of feigned normalcy. Was she ready to confront a lurking nightmare, or would the darkness consume her family? The attic door slammed shut behind her, jolting Sarah back to reality. Her heart raced like a runaway train, each beat echoing in the silence. The photos taunted her, snapping her nerves taut. "This can't be happening," she whispered, voice trembling. She needed to get out. As she retreated, a grotesque feeling crawled up her spine. Did she catch a flicker of movement from the corner? She pivoted, breath held tight in her chest. A tall silhouette stood motionless in the shadows. Mr. Jenkins. His smile was gone, replaced by a chilling blankness that felt as cold as the attic air. "Looking for something?" he intoned, voice low and dangerous. She shook her head violently, the panic rising like bile. "What are you doing here?" Her voice cracked, the fear tangible in the salty air. Jenkins stepped closer, his figure swallowing what little light remained. The floor creaked beneath him, a warning of the oppressive danger encroaching. "I just wanted to help. Sarah, you must be careful," he murmured, each word dripping with sinister undertones. The walls seemed to throb with tension, as if they were alive, hungry for her indecision. She felt corners close in, the attic shrinking around her like a vice, pressing her against memories, the times she'd seen him watching, lurking, uninvited at the edge of her peripheral vision. Gathering her courage, Sarah spat out, "You're the one who needs to leave. You're the man in the walls?" He interrupted, eyes glinting with a darkness that seemed to deepen the shadows around him. The room constricted, pressing her closer to the brink of madness. The scratching resumed, louder now. The source seemed to beam toward the edges of the walls, an invitation or a threat. It echoed in rhythm with her frantic heartbeat. She couldn't let him intimidate her. "Get away from my family," she yelled, voice cracking like thunder, searching for strength in her words. But his laughter pierced through her resolve, chilling her to the core. "Sarah, don't you see? They're already part of this." He took another step, closer now, exuding a predatory calm. "I've been watching, you know. All those moments, they're reminders for you." She stumbled back, desperation clawing at her throat. "What do you mean?" His finger pointed at the walls, as if the very structure they stood in existed as a barrier between them. "Every family has secrets, Sarah, but yours is beautiful tapestry woven with fear." Suddenly a loud crash erupted from below, sending tremors through the stale air. Both of them froze, tension coiling tighter. It felt like the walls of Elmwood Heights, the very souls of the homes around her, had awakened. "Mom!" The voice was Tyler's, reverberating while shaking the foundations. "Help!" Panic surged, flooding her senses. She had to choose: face the monster near her or protect her children. "I'm coming." She dashed for the entrance, heart racing, but he reached out, grabbing her wrist in a grip that held the chill of death. "Remember, you opened the door to this terror, Sarah. You can't unsee what you've uncovered." With a wrench she broke free, desperation fueling her. The door creaked open, casting her into the dim hallway below. But as she descended, the scratching intensified, and fear clawed deeper than before. What awaited her in the living room? Was it the innocent chaos of her children or a new horror altogether? As she reached the bottom of the stairs, ready to confront whatever awaited her, the walls reverberated with an unsettling whisper. "You should have stayed in the attic." With dread tightening around her heart, she pressed forward, knowing the answers would unveil themselves soon, for better or worse. The living room was draped in shadows, the curtains drawn tight like a tomb. Sarah's breathing quickened. Her heart thundered in her ears as the memory of Jenkins' chilling gaze lingered like fog. She didn't have time to dwell on it. "Tyler!" she shouted, panic slicing through her voice. Was he all right? She pictured him huddled in the corner, trapped in the clutches of whatever horror lurked in their home. "Over here, Mom." His voice rang out again, high and panicked. It drifted up from the corner of the room, near the old fireplace, a place filled with memories of warmth now stripped away, leaving only dread. She rushed over, half expecting something to leap from the shadows and engulf her. As she neared, her foot landed on something cold and hard. She glanced down, her stomach churning. It was a photo. Distorted. Faces twisted in silent screams, eyes wide with terror. Each family member's face was twisted, distorted as if they knew the fate that awaited them. Her own image was there. A cold and lifeless mask. Panic clawed at her throat, and she trembled, kneeling down to grab it. "Mom!" Tyler's voice was frantic, trembling lips breaking through the wall of sound that drowned her thoughts. "It's under the couch. Please help." The weight of the world bore down as she crawled, heart racing. She felt unseen eyes watching, every shadow grasping at her. What if Jenkins had somehow gotten to Tyler already? With anxiety fueling her movements, she shoved aside the worn couch. Dust motes danced in the scant light, revealing a narrow gap. From within came a guttural sound, like manipulated whispers rising from a breathing body. Instinct screamed at Sarah to run, to abandon the confrontation, but she couldn't show weakness. Not now, Tyler, she whispered hoarsely, hand trembling as she reached toward the darkness of the crevice. The whispers clawed at her sanity, growing louder, dissonant voices rising higher like a choir of the damned. The hairs on her neck stood at attention. Please. Hurry, Tyler's voice came again, a desperate plea layered with an urgent gasp. Then she felt something, a small clammy hand grasp her wrist. She yanked back, shrieking as a sharp pain lanced through her. What do you want? She cried, eyes wild. But the silence was deafening until finally Tyler slid into view, his gray eyes wide with terror. Get it off me! Get it off! His hands flailed at something curling around his ankle, dragging him toward the foreboding abyss. Without thinking, Sarah lunged, seizing Tyler's arm. The creature, that horrible thing, let him go. A shriek echoing as it retreated into the darkness. As it receded, the whispers faded, the weight in the room easing, but dread lingered. What was that? Tyler gasped, their breath heavy in the cold air. I don't know, she replied, shaking. The walls felt like they were alive, caving in more with each heartbeat. We need to get out of here. Footsteps echoed from the hallway, a gathering storm. Sarah's stomach dropped, panic roiling. She could hear Jenkins' voice murmuring low, weaving through the sound of his approach. It taunted her, filling her with an unshakable unease. Mom, Tyler's voice trembled. What do we do? They shared a look, raw desperation palpable between them. The door to salvation loomed ahead, but who was waiting on the other side? As they moved toward it, another crash reverberated from above, shaking the very foundations of Elmwood Heights, each sound sharpening their fear. Whispers returned, now desperate, pleading from the walls around them. Stay, join them. Sarah hesitated, ice coursing through her veins. There was no other option, not anymore. But the terror that awaited couldn't possibly be contained. They had no clue what they might unleash on themselves. With resolve, she gripped Tyler's hand and whispered, whatever happens, we stick together. They turned toward the door, the darkness swirling behind them, ready to consume. Just as they reached for the doorknob, a chilling voice echoed from the shadows. You're forgetting one thing, the walls can hear you and they want you to stay. The air thickened, stifling their movements. Could they escape before it was too late? Or would the house keep them forever? The doorknob felt icy in Sarah's grip, as though the chilled metal thrummed with the weight of unseen fears. She hesitated, every instinct shouting for her to flee, but that voice behind them coiled tighter, pulsing with malice. We need to go. Tyler's voice trembled, breaking the oppressive silence as they began to turn the knob. Suddenly, a deafening crash sounded just above them, shaking the very foundation of their home. The walls reverberated with an angry growl that felt like the house itself was alive. Mom! Tyler cried, his fingers slipping from her grasp as the floor trembled beneath their feet. Hold on! Sarah shouted, gripping him tightly again, her heart thumping against her ribs. We're not leaving yet. A cacophony of whispered secrets flooded the air, melding into a singular voice. Join us, remain with us, it hissed, a chorus of endless voices that seemed to seep from the walls, echoing her worst fears. The world tilted as she pulled Tyler toward the door, mentally fighting against the suffocating tendrils of despair that whispered in her ears. A shadow flickered on the wall, morphing and writhing like a living being. It took form, a dark shape of endless depths and malevolence. Sarah's breath hitched as it loomed closer, tendrils stretching forth as if to ensnare them. Let me show you, it hummed, and in that moment she understood. This was no ordinary house. This was a feeding ground, a trap for the lost and the terrified. Get away! She screamed, dragging Tyler back toward the safety of the shadows, but the entity lunged. It darted forward with impossible speed, wrapping around Tyler's ankles again, pulling him inexorably to the floor. Mom! Help! Please, Mom! His scream sliced through her panic, pierced through the veil of fear wrapping around her like chains. With a fierce cry, she leaped forward, yanking him hard even as the shadows attempted to ensnare them both. They stumbled together, struggling against the pull of the darkness. Just as Sarah managed to haul Tyler to the threshold, the front door shuddered, rattling as if something from beyond sought to break through. Jenkins' voice echoed ominously through the hall, mocking and suave. You can't run. And with a snap, the door bolted shut, trapping them in a dimly lit room that felt smaller with every passing moment. Sarah's thoughts raced. She had to find another way out. Are there any windows? She gasped, eyes darting about as adrenaline surged through her body. No, just walls. Tyler whimpered, tears welling in his eyes. They feel angry. Then we'll break through, Sarah declared, emboldening herself. She pushed her weight against the door, feeling the pulse through the wood, but it held firm. The whispers rose, a tumultuous tide of rage and despair, clawing into her mind. You won to escape, they chanted, their unity a chilling song of dread. Sarah felt bile rising in her throat as she pounded against the wooden surface. Every strike fueled her desperation, her determination to save her son. But with each blow the house shook, trembling with a life of its own. Then she froze. The whispers shifted, a singular note breaking through the cacophony. It was a voice she recognized, one that twisted her very soul, the voice of her late husband, soft yet insistent. Sarah, no, she cried, disbelief clawing at her mind. You're not him. Join me, we can be together. Forever. The shadows thickened, constricting her chest, gripping her throat. Stay with us, they hissed, and her heart raced. Mom! Tyler's voice was laced with fear, pulling her back from the edge of insanity. Don't listen. We have to get out. With one last frantic shove, Sarah reared back and kicked the door with all her strength, splintering the wood. The door cracked and Tyler's terrified cry rang out. Then, a deafening silence fell. They both stood there, breath shallow, wide-eyed, waiting for what might come next. What lay beyond that door? A path to freedom, or something even worse waiting to consume them? Just as she thought they were free, a low rumble echoed from within the walls, and a new voice filled the air. You think you can leave? The true horror begins now. As the walls pulsed ominously, Sarah understood the game had just begun. There would be no escaping without a fight. The darkness had a plan that involved them both. Would they give in or fight back in a battle for their very souls? The weight of silence pressed in on Sarah like a heavy fog. She could feel Tyler's small body trembling beside her, the fear radiating off him like heat waves. The pulse of the house throbbed around them, a living, breathing entity hungry for despair. Mom, Tyler whispered, his voice barely a breath. What do we do? She swallowed hard, fighting to keep the panic at bay. We find a way out, she whispered back, though doubt gnawed at her resolve. What if the dark whispers were true? What if there really was no escape? The air thickened, the whispers from the walls almost mocking now. Join us, stay with us, they wrapped around her thoughts, digging deep like cold fingers twisting her mind. Shut up, she shouted, shaking her fists in defiance. The echoes of her outburst ricocheted off the walls, amplifying her dread. The shadows shifted as if laughing, and a cold breeze swept through the room, extinguishing the last flicker of warmth. Mom, look. Tyler's wide eyes stared at a corner of the room, where the shadows pooled thicker, darker. A shape began to form, breaking free from the darkness like smoke, coalescing into a nightmarish figure. It was humanoid but twisted, long limbs, a crooked smile, and eyes that glowed like embers. Weary souls. You are lost, it crooned, its voice slithering over Sarah like oily silk. Stay with us, we will not let go. Get back, Sarah screamed, urging Tyler behind her. The entity leaned closer, revealing a mouth far too wide for a normal face. The whispers rose around them, drowning out her heart pounding in her ears. Hold on tight, she urged her son, backing away slowly as the figure drew nearer, its long fingers curling ominously in the air. Just hold on. But that's when the walls began to pulse again, shaking like a beast ready to stir. The entity laughed, the sound grating like nails on a chalkboard. You cannot resist. You will be ours. There was a moment of clarity in the chaos, a flash of memory that sent a shockwave of fury through her. Images of her husband, the way he used to smile, the sound of his voice filled her head. No, she wouldn't lose Tyler to this horror. Tyler! She screamed, gripping his shoulders tightly. We need to go. She turned, spotting a jagged hole in the wall, remnants of where the door had cracked. It wasn't much, but it was something, another chance. Come on, she shouted, almost dragging him through the shifting shadows. They lunged forward, but the wall seemed to pulse violently as they approached it, a barrier growing stronger with every step. The figure darted in front of them, blocking the way, eyes burning with a sadistic glimmer. Leave? It mocked, lacing every word with a chilling laugh. You are part of us now. With a primal scream, Sarah lunged at the figure, her body fueled by raw desperation. She threw herself forward, shoving Tyler behind her. The creature grinned, and in its smile, there was an abyss of darkness that promised an eternity of despair. Just before contact, the ground beneath her trembled, and a crack split the floor, spilling a cascade of dark energy. Sarah stumbled back, catching Tyler as he fell, the shadowy figure roaring in annoyance. Enough! It bellowed, and the walls shuddered, rattling every bone in her body. You will regret this. The room shook and Sarah's heart raced. She felt the pull of the darkness, as if it had teeth, gnashing at their heels, ready to consume them whole. Just when she thought they were cornered, a scrabbling sound echoed from the darkness, followed by another voice, one that wasn't the entity. Help! Someone help me! Who's there? Sarah shouted, her eyes darting to the source of the desperate cries. But the shadows swallowed the voice, leaving only uncertainty hanging in the air. A flicker of hope sparked within her. We're not alone, she yelled, gathering strength. They weren't going to let this nightmare win. Not yet. Mom, please. Tyler's voice quivered, pulling her focus back. She turned her gaze to him, heart aching with the urgency of the moment. Stay close, she commanded, and they stepped back, preparing to face the looming terror once more. Will they uncover the source of the cries or fall victim to the darkness that hungered for their souls? As Sarah and Tyler steadied themselves, the shadows shifted again, a new presence emerging, hungry and relentless. A chilling thought paralyzed her. What if the cries were a trap? Who else was caught in this nightmare? Their fight wasn't just for survival anymore, it was a desperate search for truth hidden in the shadows, a dark revelation waiting to unfold. A guttural howl pierced the air, rattling Sarah's bones. It derived from the depths of the darkness, where disembodied voices layered with anguish blended into a ghastly chorus. Help us, save us, they cried, sending chills cascading down Sarah's spine. Tyler clutched her hand tightly, nails digging into her skin, a grip of pure terror. Tyler, we need to stay strong, she whispered, though her own resolve threatened to falter. The shadows flickered, playing tricks on her mind. Faces flashed familiar, yet twisted, smeared with dread. Now was not the time to falter. Let us go. Together they pressed toward the gaping hole in the wall. But as they moved, the shadows writhed, seeming to morph into sentient tendrils reaching for them. Sarah glanced back. The figure had retreated, but not for long. She could sense it lurking, eager to pounce. Just a bit further, she breathed, heart pounding like a drum in her ears. She didn't dare look back as she stepped forward into the jagged hole. The world beyond held its breath, waiting for something terrible to happen. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, a tempest of accusations spiraling around them. You're not welcome here. Leave while you can. It felt like the walls themselves were pressing in, alive, constricting around them with every step. Sarah's hope began to falter. What if they weren't just escaping the entity chasing them but were walking deeper into a trap? Mom! Tyler whimpered, his small voice a threat against the clamoring noise. I can't hear anything but them. She looked down into his terrified face, his big eyes reflecting the kaleidoscope of shadows. Focus on my voice, she urged, ignoring the frantic beating of her heart. We're almost there. But just as they reached the opening, an icy wind gusted through the crack, snaking around her, freezing her in place. The air thickened, turning sour and bitter as if someone had breathed death into the room. No! She shouted, yanking Tyler forward with all her might. Yet the chill held them, stymied their progress and planting seeds of dread in her mind. What if they were too late? And then she saw it, a flicker of movement at the edge of the shadows. It was brief but undeniable. Something was watching them, something else entirely. Not the entity but someone or something human. A face emerged, gaunt and pale, with hollow eyes that spoke of despair. Help! The figure rasped. Don't listen to them. They will trap you like they did me. Who are you? Sarah shouted, the urgency of their situation clawing at her throat. How do we help? For just a heartbeat, the figure remained suspended between worlds, its mouth opening in a silent scream. Then it vanished, dissolving back into the shadows, leaving a lingering echo of despair. Mom, we need to go. Tyler yanked on her arm, eyes darting back to the dark figure. now re-emerging with shuddering malevolence. Run! She shouted, adrenaline pushing her past the fear. They dashed through the jagged hole, emerging into a dim corridor lined with peeling wallpaper that whispered secrets of past horrors long forgotten. But the entity was right behind them, teeth bared, laughter echoing in the hallway like a death knell. You will not escape. You are ours. It shrieked, the sound amplified as if the walls themselves joined in a chorus of their doom. Frantically, Sarah glanced around for anything an exit, a sign, a way out, but the narrow corridor stretched endlessly. Every step echoed, amplifying her catastrophe. What if we run into something worse? Tyler gasped, panting hard. But the darkness was relentless. The air grew thicker, choking her. She had to act. Turn! She shouted, yanking him to the side down an alcove. They ducked into a small darkened room, the door slamming shut behind them. Silence enveloped them, thick and smothering. Sarah pressed her ear against the door. Heart racing, then it hit her, a cacophony of whispers flooded back, louder and juicier, promising what they craved. Freedom from the horror. The voice of the figure. The only way out is to give in. Had they just walked into another trap? Hidden in the bowels of the house? Mustering her courage, she turned to Tyler. We need to find a way out of this. We can't trust them. But as she turned, the darkness pulsed once more. And from the corner of the room, shadows began to twist and bend into something all too familiar. Join us, the whisper slithered, a seductive tone wrapping around her consciousness. What choice would they make? Would they surrender to the darkness, or face whatever threat lay ahead? The choice cracked through the air like a thunderclap. What would it cost them? The darkness pressed in, thick like fog. Sarah felt it crawling over her skin, wrapping around her throat. She clutched Tyler, feeling his small frame trembling beside her. The whispers swirled, fading and intensifying, a cruel game of hide and seek. Join us. The words danced in her mind, seducing her with promises of safety, of solace. No, Sarah breathed. Listen to me, Tyler. We can't give in. Even as she said it, doubt coiled in her gut. The shadows pulled at her, relentless. She turned, searching for any sign of escape, but the small room constricted around them, becoming a prison of their own making. Something scraped against the floor, dragging closer. Heart pounding, Sarah faced the sound. An outline emerged from the shadows, its form both human and not, limbs elongated and twitching unnaturally. You cannot fight what you don't understand. It hissed, voice grating on her nerves like nails against metal. Who are you? She shouted defiantly, even as an icy hand of fear gripped her spine. The figure laughed, its face shifting like the shadows around it. It oscillated between familiar features, her long-gone grandmother, a friend from childhood, but it never settled on any one visage for long. We are what you fear. We are what you lost. Tyler squeezed her arm, his small fingers digging into her skin. Mom, please. I want to go home. His voice trembled, filled with the desperation of a child facing an unspeakable terror. We can take you, the creature crooned, a sinister melody weaving through the air. Just release the pain. Surrender your doubts. Join us. The weight of its words settled over Sarah like a shroud. No, she screamed, the intensity of her emotion slicing through the haze. I won't let you take him. In that moment of clarity, something shifted. The shadows recoiled, momentarily revealing a glimpse of the room beyond. A tattered window flickered into view, the outside world teasing her with the possibility of escape. Look, she shouted, pointing. There. Mom abandoned the shadows. Tyler's gaze followed hers, and for a heartbeat, hope surged between them, cutting through the chill. Mom! But the creature snarled, its distorted face twisting into a mask of rage. You think you can leave? You are bound by your fears. As if conjured by its fury, the walls trembled. Wood creaked like a living thing awakening. The peeling wallpaper began to bleed, a crimson ooze that crawled towards them, seeking to ensnare them in a sticky embrace. Run! Sarah yelled. She grasped Tyler's hand, pulling him toward the window. But before they reached it, the shadows lunged, snapping like whips and wrapping around their legs, holding them in place. Join us, it whispered again, each word dropping like a lead weight in her heart. Your pain, your loss, it will all end. You will be free. Panic surged through her. We can't give in to this. We can't let it win. With a primal scream, Sarah threw herself backward, pulling Tyler with her as the shadows whipped with vengeful fury. She felt the tension snap in the air, the darkness momentarily retreating, but then she spotted a shimmering reflection in the corner of the room, a mirror with cracked glass that seemed to beckon to her, the promise of truth lurking within its depths. What would she see if she looked? "Mom, don't," Tyler pleaded, but something deeper thrummed through Sarah. A need to uncover the truth, to find the root of this fear. She took a step toward the mirror, heart racing. What lay on the other side? What reflection awaited them in this haunted chamber? The shadows writhed and surged against her, desperate to keep their secrets. With a deep breath, she prepared to look. Would it show them a way out, or the very thing they feared most? The moment Sarah's gaze met the mirror's fractured surface, everything else fell away. The whispers faded, leaving only the pounding of her heart. A scene unfolded within the shards of glass, flickering in and out like a stormy night. She saw herself, but not as she was now. Instead, a version of her younger self stared back, a reflection caught in a moment of anguish, eyes wide with terror. "Mom, stop." Tyler's voice pierced through her trance, but the words seemed muted. "It's okay," she whispered, though she wasn't sure it was. A single tear slid down her cheek as memories she had buried began to crowd her mind. The last conversation with her grandmother, the fragments of joy lost in the wake of grief. A cold finger grazed her arm, pulling at her memory. The creature in front of her writhed, its many faces shifting into those she longed for and feared all at once. "See what you were too afraid to face," it hissed. The reflection twisted her heart into knots. "No, this isn't real." But doubt whispered back, threading its way through her thoughts. What if it was real? What if she had been running from her own sorrow? Instinctively, she stepped closer, drawn in like a moth to a flame. The mirror's surface shimmered, beckoning her to lean forward. "Together, dear," the creature crooned, its voice smooth as silk, so enticing. "Let go and be free." "Don't. We have to fight it," Tyler cried, tugging at her arm, his small body trembling. Sarah snapped back, glancing down at him. "You have to trust me," she shouted over the rising tide of whispers surrounding them, filling her ears with deceitful urgings. Suddenly, the room pulsed, the shadows shifting with renewed vigor as if sensing the crack in her resolve. The blood from the walls thickened, surging toward them like a hungry beast. "Join us," the creature echoed, more voices joining in a nightmarish chorus. "You are never alone in your fear, Mom," Tyler screamed, eyes darting from the mirror back to the encroaching darkness. With a surge of fierce protectiveness, Sarah grabbed Tyler and yanked him against her. "No, we're not lost." She felt an electric jolt of determination flood her veins. She wouldn't allow the shadows to steal him, to steal herself. But the mirror's allure remained a seduction, fighting against her thoughts. The whispers crescendoed, a cacophony folding into itself, fabricating words that echoed long-buried regrets. "Give in, and you will know peace." Gritting her teeth, Sarah turned away from the mirror, clutching Tyler tighter. The room stagnated, the twisted forms around them contorting in fury. Suddenly, the floor beneath them shuddered, splintering as if trying to uproot them. The shadows recoiled, their grasp weakening momentarily. "Leave us, leave now," she shouted, not caring if she was talking to the shadows or herself. "But we have nowhere to go." Tyler's voice broke her conviction, and for a moment despair threatened. Where could they run when the very walls were alive with their fears? Then she remembered the dwindling patches of light along the floor. An exit from this nightmare was still possible. They had to act quickly before the darkness returned full force. "Follow me. We're getting out of here," she urged, moving with determination toward the tattered window, the frame barely clinging to the wall. But as they reached the glass, a hand, pale, skeletal, shot out from the shadows to grab her ankle, dragging her back, even as Tyler pulled forward, terrified but resolute. The creature shrieked, desperate to reclaim them, its voices mingling in a torturous symphony. In that moment, Sarah glimpsed a tiny crack of light outside, a pinprick of possibility. "No," she fought against the shadow's grip, heart racing. "We're not yours to keep." The terror mounted, swirling around them. Would they make it to the light in time, or would they be consumed by the darkness once more? With a final fervent yell, she surged toward the window, hoping to escape the hellish grip before them. But would the light be salvation, or the transparent veil of another horrifying illusion? The moment Sarah lunged for the window, the dark hand tightened its grasp. Cold fingers curled around her ankle like chains forged from despair, pulling her into the shadows. With a desperate twist, she felt her heart thunder as the screams of the darkness swallowed them both. "Mom!" Tyler shouted, his small hands clawing at her wrist, pulling with all his might. But the shadows were strong, pulling Sarah deeper into their suffocating embrace. "Hold on!" she screamed back, her voice echoing in the empty room. A sound barely heard over the mounting chaos. Panic coursed through her veins, chilling her to the bone. She couldn't let go. Not now. Not ever. With a force she didn't know she possessed, Sarah yanked her foot free, the weight of Tyler pulling her back into the dim light. They stumbled backward, bracing themselves against the glass. The room warped around them, the shadows swirling like a storm. "No matter where you go, we are here," the creature hissed, its many mouths twisting into sinister grins. "You will never escape your fears." But a flicker of light drew Sarah's gaze again. Just outside the window, the sun hung low, bleeding warmth into the darkness. It was hope incarnate, a stark contrast to the cold dread enveloping them. "Calm down, Mom." Tyler's small voice cut through the panic. "We can do this together." She nodded, redirecting her fear into fierce resolve. Together. They faced the mirror once more. Its surface rippled, the silent pull attempting to draw them back into their torment. But they had something stronger, the bond between mother and son. In tandem, Sarah pointed. "Break it!" she screamed. With a primal shout, they hurled themselves at the glass, the splintered surface shattering into 1,000 shards, each reflecting their horrified faces. A wave of light burst through the jagged edges, washing over them like a cleansing tide. As the shadows screamed their rage, Sarah felt an explosive energy surge through her. The last tendrils of darkness clutched frantically at the edges of the room, determined to pull them back. But they would not yield. With one final push, a blinding light erupted from the shattered mirror, engulfing the entire room. For a heartbeat, everything froze. The air was electric, filled with the crackling sound of energy breaking free. Then, as quickly as it had come, light dissolved the shadows, illuminating the space with an ethereal glow. "I can see it, Mom," Tyler gasped. "The way is clearer." But the moment was fleeting. As they stepped back, Sarah noticed the eerie silence that suffocated the space. The walls, once alive with whispers, now lay still, an unsettling void where noises once lived. She glanced around, noticing a squirming pattern emerging within the walls, what seemed like shapes writhing behind the plaster. "Is it over?" Tyler asked, trembling. I don't know." Sarah felt dread sink deep within her. There was still something lurking behind those walls, dark and waiting. "We should go," Tyler urged, swallowing hard. But even as they turned towards the door, she couldn't shake the feeling, a cold certainty that they weren't safe yet. The air felt heavy, charged with a malevolent energy. Suddenly, the walls began to pulse, as if breathing. "Mom, what is that?" Tyler whispered, staring wide-eyed before she could answer. The wall closest to them cracked, and an eye opened, a hollow, dark void that seemed to stare straight into her soul. And then came the voice, low and mocking, seeping through the cracks. "You thought you could leave so easily?" The room trembled, shadows rearing back to life, hungry and relentless. "Run!" Sarah shouted, pulling Tyler toward the door as the ground shook violently beneath them. But escape didn't seem possible anymore. With each frantic heartbeat, darkness surged forward, reveling in their fear. Closing her eyes briefly, Sarah took a deep breath, knowing there was no safety in retreat. They needed to confront whatever madness awaited them, whether behind the walls or within their very souls. The question lingered. What monstrous truth awaited them in the darkness ahead? As Sarah and Tyler barreled for the door, the very walls seemed to breathe with rage, a sinister creature that yearned to keep them captive. Shadows swirled, eager tendrils brushing against their legs, whispering threats that mingled with their speeding heartbeats. But the fear that gripped them became fuel, igniting a fierce will to survive. "Hold on to me tight," Sarah shouted, gripping her son's small hand as they raced toward the door. Time slowed, shadows closing in like a monstrous wave about to crash. The door stood before them, silhouetted against the swirling darkness. "Mom, it's not going to hold," Tyler cried, panic in his voice. The rumbling beneath their feet intensified, a warning that the structure itself was protesting their escape. With a primal scream, Sarah slammed her shoulder against the door. The echo of wood splintering resonated within as the door flew open, daylight spilling into the dim corridor. Go, she yelled, propelling Tyler through the threshold just as a woodsy voice unfurled behind them. You'll never escape the darkness. You belong to it. Tyler stumbled into the light, pulling Sarah along as the sun's warmth kissed their skin, stark contrast to the frigid air of the house. They tumbled into the yard, sprawling across the grass, the familiar scent of summer enveloping them like a comforting embrace. Tyler, Sarah gasped, squeezing her son, making sure he was real, tangible. We did it. We're out. But a thundering roar erupted from behind them, and they whipped around to see the house pulsating, dark tendrils stretching from every crack and crevice, clawing at the sky. You may have escaped, but we will find you. You are part of us now. Run. Tyler squeaked, dread creeping back into his voice. Urged on by his fear, they fled toward the street, frantically searching for safety, for solace, until the comforting forms of neighbors emerged from their homes, confusion painted across their faces. Sarah, what happened? Mrs. Johnson called out, her eyes wide with concern. But Sarah couldn't explain. Words felt inadequate. She could only muster one frantic thought. They had to warn others, had to break the facade. It's the house. It's not just a house. It's alive. But her urgency stilled when a flicker of movement behind her pulled her gaze back to their once beloved home. With a sudden, unnatural calm, Mr. Jenkins stood at the door, his trademark smile replaced with a chilling grin. You thought you could run, you thought you could leave it all behind? The house loves you, Sarah. Craves you. You'll never be free. With defiance, Sarah shouted back, not today. You want to take us. The words felt like an incantation, rallying her heart against the weight of the darkness that had once clawed at her. The crowd whispered, unsure, glancing between the house and Sarah. Murmurs rippled through the group, softening their disbelief. What are you saying? Another neighbor called, sensing their mounting terror. But now Tyler stepped forward, courage igniting in his eyes. We saw it. The thing in the walls. It's real. You have to believe us. The wavering of doubt in the crowd sparked fires of realization. One by one, neighbors nodded, stepping closer. You should have listened sooner, Sarah said, panic slipping away to fierce resolve. Heart pounding, she turned back toward the house, prepared to face its malevolent spirit. If this is a fight it wants, then let us fight. In an instant, a shifting energy surged through the crowd. The whispered shadows still attacked, clawing for dominion. But now they wouldn't fight this battle alone. Hand in hand, the community rallied, their voices rising with echoes of defiance. Leave them alone. We are stronger. They shouted in unison. The windows rattled. The shadows deepened. And yet with every cry the walls shuddered, beginning to recede under the weight of their newfound strength. Sarah felt Tyler squeeze her hand. The light from the sun pierced through the oppressive darkness, breaking into shards as a battle manifested, oscillating between shadow and warmth. Mom! Working. With renewed resolve they pushed forward together, the voices of fear in the shadows fading, losing power against the combined will of the community. Run! Sarah shouted again, almost as a chant, the urgency dissipating into the triumph of unity. One final surge erupted from the group, and the house trembled, cracked, the entity within dissipating like smoke. As sunlight spilled through every inch of the once burdened home, shadows scattered, their whispers falling silent. Breathless and victorious, Sarah and Tyler stood amidst their neighbors. A taut string of fear turned into the melody of resilience. They had braved the darkness and reclaimed the light. It was over, at least for now. Let us not forget this day, Sarah said softly, locking eyes with the faces around her. Together we face what haunted us. Together we can keep it away. And at that moment, as they embraced the warmth of a new dawn, Sarah knew the scars would remain, but they would hold stories that no longer whispered terror but a mantra of strength. The oppressive weight of fear lifted, and a sense of calm washed over Elmwood Heights, forever changed but forever their home. Now remember, if you want more stories that dig deep into the unknown, you need to subscribe immediately. Smash the like button now to show your support and help others discover this chilling series. Don't wait even 1 second to flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. Let's hear what you think it all means. And please, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how this concludes. Your support makes all the difference.